Brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد الأمين وعلى آله الطاهرين وأصحابه الراشدين والتابعين لهم بخير وإحسان إلى يوم الدين وعلينا معهم وفيهم برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, thank you for logging on this informational session that we are holding 1 week prior to the election, or actually 6 days prior to our important midterm election. And we will be giving you a brief Know Your Rights presentation with two of our colleagues, or two of my colleagues at CAIR Michigan. Before we bring them on to the stage, I would just like to give a little bit of information about CAIR Michigan, the Council on American Islamic Relations. And CAIR Michigan, we are a advocacy and civil liberties organization that serves primarily the Muslim community, but not only the Muslim community. And our ethos is based in Islamic principles. However, in saying that, we are a nonprofit organization. We do not endorse candidates. So if you call to our office in the next few days saying, who should we vote for the governor? We can't do that. Our staffers aren't going to tell you that CAIR Michigan endorses Fulana bint Fulan or Fulana bint Fulan on this side. So we don't do that as an organization. So we don't endorse candidates, just for your knowledge. Also, CAIR Michigan is not a Majlis al-Fuqaha, or it's not a Majlis al-Ulama. We are not an ulama council that gives legal verdicts, or you calling it a fatwa in regards to XYZ issue that may have some political implications. We don't give fatwa. So for those of you who are interested, for instance, in certain issues, like let's say Prop 3, and what is the position on abortion from our local scholars, you can go to look at the opinion of the Imams Council of Michigan for that, and you can see what the Mashayikh agreed upon from Khamsa Madhahib, Sunnah and Shia, agreed in regards to this position. So you can check that out, but we don't give fatwa on that. In regards to the ballot proposals, in which we will talk about one of them, Prop 2, which relates to voting rights, this is inside of our scope. So we did not take a declarative position on Prop 1, and nor did we take a position on Prop 3. And in particular, Prop 3 goes outside of the scope of our work as a civil rights organization. That issue of abortion is outside the scope of what CAIR Michigan deals with. So just letting you know, like if you call our office and you also say, Sheikh Daoud, what should I vote on for Prop 3? Or you call one of our staffers, you're going to hear the answer. We do not have an organizational position on Prop 3. So again, you look at the Imams Council of Michigan's opinion on that, and be judicious in your own research on issues, and just don't believe television ads, or don't blindly believe what any party says on the right or on the left about any of these hot button socio-political issues. Make sure you do your own research, and then in that research, make sure that your vote jibes with the ruling of your madhab. If you are a practicing Muslim, don't base your votes solely on identity politics. With that, I'm going to bring on our first speaker, our staff attorney, Sister Amy, and she's going to be speaking with you about a couple of very important issues. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam, Brother Dawood. Thank you.
So it's all yours.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be doing this again this year. CAIR Michigan has, for the past few elections, provided some vital information to our community with regard to their rights at the polls. We have seen in the past some issues in some specific cities where we've had to go out on election day because there are issues. So it's very important that you know what your rights are at the polls. One of the most fundamental rights at the polls is that you have the right to be free from intimidation. That means nobody can come to the polls and try to force you to vote a certain way or try to scare you into abdicating or leaving and not producing your vote. We have seen in some early voting places, not in the state of Michigan, but other places where they have early voting, there are people who are attempting to intimidate voters. But you have an absolute right to be free from intimidation. And we urge you that if you find people at the polls who are intimidating you, threatening you, we urge you to notify poll workers and law enforcement immediately so that we can make sure that we exercise our right to vote. In our community, some things that are very important specifically is you have the right, if you speak a language and you read in a language other than English as your primary or your first language, or even if you just have a language that you're more comfortable in, despite the fact that you're fluent in English, you absolutely have a right to have a ballot translated for you. In a lot of cities that have high immigrant populations or high English as a second language populations, these are already in place, these ballots. They have ballots that are absolutely already translated. So you can go in, you can ask a poll worker, you can say, I need a ballot in Arabic, or I need a ballot in Bangla, so that you can get your ballot translated. However, if you are in a community where maybe there's not a high population of English as a second language individuals, you may not be able to get an actual ballot that's translated into a language. And if that happens to be the case, you have the right to have a translator with you. A lot of the polling places, I know Hamtramck, Dearborn, and some Warren, a lot of times you'll go into the polls and they'll have translators on staff that can help you. So you can use a translator that's at the poll if you want, but you can also use a translator of your choice. If you want to take your friend or your neighbor or your child or your parent with you to vote, you can have anybody assist you at the polls that you want, and you can have that person assist you without any explanation. So if you want to go in and you have somebody with you and you want to take them into the voting booth to assist you, you don't have to explain to anybody why they're there. They shouldn't ask you why they're there, and you don't have the responsibility to tell them why they're there. You also have the right to take any written material that you want with you in the ballot and into the voting booth. Nobody can check it. Nobody can look at it. Nobody can challenge your right to take it with you. One of the things that I always urge people to do, because voting is such a big issue and we have a lot of very complex issues on the ballot this year, is go to your city clerk ahead of time, get a sample ballot and fill it out at home. And so you can take your time and you can investigate the candidates. You can look through the proposals and see what you agree with, what you don't agree with, and then fill it out ahead of time. And then you can actually take that completed sample ballot with you on the day that you vote. And use it as sort of like a cheat sheet, and you can just transfer what's on your sample ballot to your actual ballot. And that's an absolute right. The other thing you have a right to do is you have a right to vote even if you don't have an identification card. If you don't have a passport or a driver's license, it's always better to take ID with you. But if you don't have a passport or a driver's license, or you accidentally leave it at home because you're rushing out to get to the polls, you can vote with an alternative form of ID. And that includes bank statements, school identification cards, or any piece of mail that has your name on it, or your pay stubs. And the other thing you have the right to do is you have an absolute right to vote if you get in line before 8 p.m. A lot of people think that you have to have voted by 8 p.m., but that's simply not the case. There are a lot of places where the polls get very busy in the evening because we have a lot of people who go to work and then they have to vote after work. So you have the right to vote if you get in line before 8 p.m. If a poll worker comes out and tries to tell you that you can't vote because it's after 8 p.m. and you're already in line, you stay in line, you ask to speak with the city clerk, and you absolutely vote as long as you've made it in line before 8 p.m. Some other problems that we've seen in the past is when people challenge your right to vote. Maybe they challenge your name. Maybe your name doesn't appear on the voter registration rolls for that precinct. Or maybe you don't have an ID, so they tell you that you can't vote. So, but if you go to the polling place with the intent to vote, you absolutely remain there until you vote. There are some things that you could do if somebody challenges your right to vote or challenges your identification. You can ask the poll worker to get sworn in to affirm the fact that you are believed that you are a registered voter. You can sign an affidavit saying that you are who you are and that you are registered to vote. And then you can vote on a provisional ballot, meaning you get to cast your vote and then you get to fight later to make sure that your vote counts. And the way that you fight later to make sure your vote counts, if your vote has been challenged and you've had to cast a provisional ballot, is you follow up with the city clerk the next day. You do not have to ever leave a polling place without voting if you've gone there to vote and you believe that you are qualified and registered to vote. So what happens if we experience problems at the polls? Well, there are several things that you should do. If you go in and you find out that they're not letting people have translators and you need one, or they challenge your right to take somebody with you, or if they challenge your right to vote because you don't have an identification card, you should immediately notify a poll worker and you should immediately notify the city clerk's office. You can call them. All of them have a number. They should have people on staff that are there to deal with these specific issues on voting day. And you remain in the polling place until you absolutely have cast your ballot. The other things that you can do if you face voter intimidation, if you find people at the polls that are threatening you, if you find candidates, workers at the polls that are trying to stop you from voting, or you experience any problem with discrimination at the polls, you can call the Department of Justice's hotline at 616-808-2140. That is the Department of Justice's hotline for the state of Michigan to vote to identify voter problems. You can also call the state of Michigan Secretary of State hotline at 1-800-482-3604. And you can call that number to identify to the Secretary of State. And I know for a fact that the Secretary of State has people on staff that they have sent out to polling places when there have been problems at polling places. So the state of Michigan will come out and take care of whatever issues coming your way if the city clerk is unable to resolve your issues. The other thing that you should do is you should call our office at 248-559-2247. That's 248-559-2247, because we have staff on hand that has appeared at polling places to defend people's rights to vote at the time that they are there voting. If you can't call us, you can email us at cairmichigan@gmail.com. That's CAIR Michigan@gmail.com, or you can file an online complaint at cairmichigan.org. So those are all of your rights that you have at the polls. And there's so many rights, but we have just a limited time. But the most important thing is make sure that you make a plan. You identify problems right away to have them resolved, and you never get out of line before you actually vote. So thank you for letting me speak to you today. Brother Dowd's going to come on and give you some more information, inshallah.
Yes, so we're going to have Sister Noor come on in a moment to talk about Prop 2, and we appreciate all of your hard work, Sister Amy, as well as that thorough presentation. In regards to this issue of voter intimidation, as well as the translator, for those of you who are watching, especially if you know people who need translation help or they are beginning ESL students as far as English, and just in general, make sure to please share this video in your WhatsApp groups or in the email groups that you're in so that people have access to this information. In the election a couple of years ago, I know that Sister Amy had to go out to the polls, in particular in Hamtramck, and I got calls in relationship to Hamtramck and Dearborn in regards to various things, from people being turned away from polls to the issue of the translator issue. Excuse me, I was stumbling. The translator issue, and I mentioned that because Hamtramck and Dearborn are the two most populous areas that Muslims reside in the state of Michigan, yet Muslims have problems there. So it's just to say that we need to be abreast of our rights, and it can happen to you or someone you know, even in an area such as southeastern Michigan, which is one of the most highly concentrated populations of Muslims in these United States of America. So I'm going to take myself off, and Sister Amy, for now, we're going to bring on Sister Noor to talk about a very important proposition. Uh, Maybe it's not as getting as much fanfare as Prop 3, but it's very important to all Michiganians, especially Michigan Muslims, and in particular, what happened 2 years ago when people tried to nullify our election results. So I'm bringing on Sister Noor right now, and all three of us will come back on after Sister Noor finishes for any questions that you have or any additional comments that staff needs to make. Assalamu alaikum, Sister Noor.
Assalamu alaikum and assalamu alaikum, everybody. My name is Nur Ali. I'll be talking about Proposal 2, inshallah. So, Proposal 2 is going to be expanding our rights as Michigan voters. It's going to be allowing up to 9 days of early voting. This is also very important for people who serve the country overseas, people who are in the army, because they will now be allowed to send in their absentee ballot and it will be counted as long as it is postmarked before Election Day. This also requires the state government to provide prepaid stamps. So just now, when I submitted my absentee ballot and my mother's, we had to provide the stamps to send it back to our local city clerk. However, now these stamps will be prepaid by the state government. It will also require the state to provide drop boxes. Not every city has like a mandated drop box. It depends on the city and obviously if they've allocated money for such a thing. I believe that Dearborn is a city that does have a drop box. I know my local city, Dearborn Heights, has that as well. And Proposal 2 overall is for expanding voter access. So this also means that if you do not have a photo ID, you can provide a signed affidavit. And a signed affidavit is essentially proof of what your signature looks like. So you can get that and provide that to election workers, and that will work in place of your ID if you don't have an ID. That, however, that is only for people who have already voted before. If you are a first time voter, you do need to provide a state recommended ID. So that's your driver's license, state issued ID, military ID, school ID. And we have a list of all of those IDs up on our Instagram at CAIR Michigan. Further, Proposal 2 protects voters really from any voter intimidation tactics that Brother Dawood and also Sister Amy just disclosed. As Michigan Muslims, these still happen in cities where we are the majority, such as Dearborn Heights, Dearborn, Hamtramck. This happens honestly every election, unfortunately. So it's very important that voter intimidation is something that people can be held accountable for, and Proposal 2 is something that is advocating for that.
Thank you, Sister Noor. Is there anything else that needs to be added on to, Sister Amy?
I would just say that one of the things that I think is very important about Proposal 2 is the fact that it requires that that the people who are certifying the election actually certified the election based on the votes count. What it does is it alleviates the problem that we had in 2020, where people who were tasked with certifying the elections tried to use their discretion to invalidate and to refuse to certify those elections, which causes a lot of insecurity with regards to whether our votes actually count. So I think that Proposal 2 goes a long way to making sure that the votes are not, that people who are certifying votes are nonpartisan, and that they have no discretion, that they must certify the votes that are actually cast. And I think that is one of the ways in which Michigan is attempting to protect its voters and its votes in Proposal 2.
Thank you very much. So basically, Sister Noor and Sister Amy gave a summary of why we at CAIR Michigan support Prop 3, and we encourage you strongly. Number one, to go up.
Prop
Excuse
2.
me, Prop 2. Prop 2. Thank you, Prop 2. What did I say? Prop 1?
Prop 3.
Prop 3. Oh, no. Thank you. I've been hearing so many conversations about Prop 3. No, again, clarifying, CAIR Michigan has taken no position on Prop 3. So delete that. Uh, but we encourage you to vote yes on Prop 2 for the reasons that Sister Noor and Sister Amy mentioned, and not simply to secure, early voting, the issue of the IDs, or to be able to vote without an ID for people maybe who lost it or too poor. There's some financial distress, so they can't get an ID, as well as the our military members who are abroad, to make sure their votes are counted. But importantly, as I started off, so that there aren't any shenanigans on election day where people claim that the election is stolen, and then big lies are told, or as it's used, a big lie that try to invalidate the will of the people and our votes, as Michiganians or Michiganders, whichever term you like to use, and the Muslim community in general. So please vote yes for Prop 2. Encourage everyone to go out and vote. And those of you who are able to vote, who are watching this now live or in its entirety, we strongly encourage you to vote. Even if you skip voting for certain people because you are unsure, or you think that it's uh, both sides are evil. They're like, there is no lesser than two evil side. At least go out and exercise your civic responsibility and vote yes for Prop 2. At the very least, if you feel uncomfortable with the candidates. Um, those who are watching, if you'd like to pose a question for my two colleagues, you most certainly can. We'll stay on for about another minute or so and wait for any comments or questions. If not, we will then conclude. And again, if you have any questions in regards to voting, not about specific candidates, but about the process, or if you have any complaints on election day, please call our office. I typed the number in the comment section on Facebook and YouTube in this video, and you can go on our website, which is streaming below, or it's the banner, and our phone number is on there as well on our website, CAIRMichigan.org. Any concluding comments, Sister Noor, Sister Amy?
I would just say voting is important. It's a civic duty. If you don't want to vote on everything, vote on the things that you feel strongly about. But voting can be, it can take time. So make a plan, know how you're going to get there, know what time you're going to go, know who's going to go with you, know what kind of assistance you need, and sit down, make a plan, get a sample ballot, know how you're going to vote before you get there, and go in and exercise your duty, and feel good about protecting your civil rights and your constitutional right to vote.
Thank you very much.
I agree with all the points Sister Amy said, and in the words of former First Lady Michelle Obama, don't boo, vote. So please just get out, please vote. That's incredibly important, and it really does matter. So please do it.
Thank you very much for your concluding comments. And with that, we will conclude this live stream. And as usual, before we close with a dua, as a reminder, CAIR Michigan is a nonprofit organization, 501c3. We also are a Zakat al-Mal eligible organization. We assist Fuqara and Masakin in our community that have legal needs and legal rights that need protecting. And our organization is funded by the community, right? We don't get big foundation money from such and such foundation. And that allows us to be free to advocate on your behalf. And there's a saying, who funds you runs you. Well, we are beholden to the community. We're not beholden to corporate America or any foundation on the right or to the left. In order for us to keep our independence and our integrity, to not be beholden by the partisans of the donkey or the partisans of the elephant, then we need your not only your dua, but we need your financial support. So please consider giving us a financial contribution. And with that, we conclude, and we ask Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect our community, to protect the citizens of Michigan, to protect the United States of America, to protect the refugees and the undocumented immigrants that make their way fleeing their lives from their lands to come to our country. We ask Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help our brothers and sisters all throughout the world who are suffering injustice and legal occupation. And we ask Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us be better human beings, make us be better Muslims, and to grant us the wisdom and the application that when we disagree with people, that we disagree with people with good manners and not with hatred and not with slanders and not with false information and innuendos and these sorts of things. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد ان لا اله الا انت نستغفرك ونتوب اليك. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر ان الانسان لفي خسر الا الذين امنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى اله الطيبين الطاهرين.